I think we can get going. Um, Welcome everyone to Away Message number 2, the second in a virtual reading series specifically benefiting queer, sick, disabled, multiply marginalized writers who have lost income or lost access due to things, complications, etc. around COVID-19. I'm so excited for this entire reading. I really, really love and respect all of these writers' writings. And I think everyone is going to be reading some newer stuff as well, which I've never been hosted or been a part of a reading that's been all newer, which is exciting as well. Tonight we'll be hearing from Travis Chi Wing Lau, Heidi, Andrea, Restrepo, Rhodes, Johanna Hedva, and dodd. I'm going to read all of their bios when I introduce them in that order, but I just wanted to lead with that off the start. And I also just wanted to make a couple of really brief acknowledging remarks before we start as well. Thank you so much to everyone who's been sharing this, to those who have donated, to those who will donate, and to the generosity of so many people, especially Jesse Rice Evans, Kamisha Jones, with Split This Rock, and Ricardo Hernandez with Poets and Writers, who are all instrumental in helping set up access things around the reading, and also just helping publicize this as well. Those of you who are tuning in, there's an access document that is on the website that you can follow along for. If you need to, there's also live captioning that's happening right now. Thank you to Lenore, our live captioner. And if you have any available money at all, there's also a Venmo link to help pay readers. That will go 100% to the readers. We were able to secure some funding from Poets and Writers, but we also have, I don't know, any additional money would be, of course, very helpful if you have the resources available. With all of that said, and oh my God, people have already started to do that again. It still surprises me every time that, I don't know, I say something and people do it. Maybe it's just my Pisces rising, Pisces sun. But I wanted to just start off by introducing Travis's work, who's going to be our first reader. Travis Chi Wing Lau is a postdoctoral teaching fellow at the University of Texas at Austin, and will be assistant professor of 18th century and Romantic British literature at Kenyon College in the fall. He specializes in 18th and 19th century British literature, health humanities, and disability studies. Lau is published in Disability Studies Quarterly, Digital Defoe, 18th century fiction, as well as venues for public scholarship like Public Books and the Los Angeles Review of Books. His poetry has appeared in Barron Magazine, Word Gathering, Glass, The New Engagement, and in a chapbook, The Bone Setter from Damaged Goods Press in 2019. Travis's criticism and poetry are both incredible. I'd recommend reading those. But also, he's going to be the author of Pairing, which is forthcoming from Finishing Line Press and was announced earlier today, I want to say.
Yes, quite literally hours ago.
Oh my God, I am so excited. So please welcome Travis.
Thanks so much, Zephyr. It really is a pleasure to be reading my work and getting a chance to share space with everyone at a moment where I feel an immense sense of disconnection in that so many of the people that make up my support network are far away. And I feel like the resources and emotional resources that I depend on are not as accessible. So I really appreciate this moment of holding space for us. So the poems I've picked for today are poems that are related to my experience of chronic pain, particularly with scoliosis-related disability. And I've been thinking a lot about what pain means in this moment, and what sort of meditating and inhabiting pain means at a moment when we're collectively feeling it. So I've picked a few poems, and I'll end with a poem that I love very much, that I hope I'll have time to read. But the first poem is entitled "On the Anniversary of an X-Ray." The technician's peace offering is layered neatly into quarters to be drawn with string, a gown to cover what will be exposed to the light of truth, sharp, cold. How it makes an opening of me to an augur hiding behind screen and oath when verdict reduces flesh to word, spare and sanitary without the traces of filth that separates me from a number. A call, a value, peels strip away skin, 2 bells to reassure her it is safe, safe from dangerous truth. Related to that poem is an earlier chaplet of poems called The Bone Setter, where I write about my experience going through treatment for my spinal curvature. And the poems in that represent an arc of that experience. And I'm going to read 2 from that. This is Prognosis. Cursory review, haste follows a script, an illegible sentence, binding word to flesh, a contract for what we both know will be a difficult, tedious, painful enterprise from which only you shall gain, because pain is your currency and there is plenty enough to keep lights on, enough for you to call an educated guess a divination. But even as prophecies are now made of numbers that break me into numbers, you can offer nothing akin to assurance, for it was never about my comfort, but about the tale you must tell to ensure my vulnerable consent, a trust as brittle as the bones that brought me to your sham of an oracle. But you always knew I would sign because even a percentage bears hope. Treatment. After the verdict begins a series of acts in the name of correction, for nature's error cannot be left to its own machinations, so you marshal your own mechanics into a hard solution of gear and gravity, really a tissue of theory stretched like my body on the rack, that at first feels something like pleasure when the spaces between the vertebrae expand against the ill will of time, whose years are compressed into minutes, but the relief slips like the discs back into an inaccessible place, indexed only by a species of cry that permits no escape other than enviced gasps that remind you reluctantly when to stop. I think I have enough time for this final poem. This is a lover dead in his 20s, and this is for Glass Poetry, for the Poets Resist series. And it feels like a particularly valuable poem to return to as a sickbed poem and as a poem of mourning. So yes, this is a lover dead in his 20s after Adrian Rich. Number 1, just before they signed away your right to life, you thought to hide hints behind your gasps because you knew I loved to lean into you, to listen actively as it was the closest we would ever be. 2, the grain of your voice, I did not know that memorials bore such textures. The ivy has already strangled your name. 3, the planes of you were changing, but you chose never to make much of it because that wasn't how you were raised, to outline yourself in enough green to be envied, enough red to be a target. A shot in the back is the present's plain language. I learned from you that being a cipher could be a powerful desire. 4, Wonderovich said when it was all over, he wanted us to just drop his body on the steps of the fucking FDA, but I don't know if I have the heart to do that to you. You who I failed to love with any grace, even as your body is something sharper now than it ever was in life, because you refused the right to amnesia, the linchpin of home and country, red and rusty by your and our brothers' tainted blood, for our touching needed to be untouching until they were distant forms that only became hard fact in the flows of longing. 5, How am I supposed to cast this flower upon your soil? How do I tell the truth of you when the very words I need were the ones that once bound you, hurt you, stole away your name? Eulogy, true praise. 6. By the time you could not move, you no longer bothered with the headlines, cheap pundits because the story still eludes the dainty fingers of press and camera. You were already too busy cleaving hard to that imperceptible space beyond their line of sight. 7. A warrior burying a warrior. No, that's not right. You would want me to write, however inexact or exacting, about a life beyond reproach, so that none of us must apologize for doing nothing wrong. Thanks so much.
Thank you for that, Travis. That was so good. Thank you. I realized I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Zephyr Lisowski. I'm a poet. I'm an editor. I do a lot of things. This is the thing that I'm currently the most excited about. For those of you who are just now tuning in, welcome. There's a, if you have any available money, as I'll be saying between every reader, there's a Venmo link below in the YouTube bio and also on the website to donate to readers. If you don't have the money to spare, don't worry about it. I appreciate your presence nonetheless. I wanted to introduce our next reader, Heidi Andrea Restrepo Rhodes, whose work I'm also really, really excited to hear. She's a queer second-generation Colombian immigrant, poet, artist, scholar, and activist, and the author of the poetry collection, The Inheritance of Haunting, which won the 2018 Andres Montoya Poetry Prize and came out in 2019 from the University of Notre Dame Press. Her creative work has been published, exhibited, and participated in as Us, Pink, RASPA, Word Riot, Feminist Studies, the National Queer Arts Festival, the Sick Collective, Soma Arts Galleria de la Raza, the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, and others. She was a semi-finalist for the 2017 92nd Street Y Unterberg Poetry Center Discovery Contest and a semi-finals judge for the 2017 Youth Speaks Brave New Voices National Poetry Slam competition, and was named one of Poets and Writers' top debut poets in 2019, which is was also accompanied by a really pretty watercolor illustration of her as well. She didn't do the illustration herself, I'm just saying it looks nice. Born in Arizona and raised in California, she currently lives in Brooklyn. And I should say on the website as well, there are links to buy chapbooks and collections from all of our readers tonight. Please consider doing that as well. Heidi's book is incredible. But please welcome Heidi.
Hi, thank you, Zephyr. Thank you, Travis, for that lovely reading. I'm always really grounded and just feel connected, especially by sick and disabled queers. I think we have this ongoing practice of community in the context of isolation due to illness and disability, and that's something that a lot of us are drawing on and disseminating beyond our community during this time. And that's really meant a lot in all its forms. So thank you for making this space, Zephyr. Also, my bio says I currently live in Brooklyn, but I feel like I should clarify that during this COVID moment, I'm in Ohio and it's been a snowy day. It's a very different kind of spring that I'm used to. So I have 4 poems to share today. The first one is a piece from a series I just completed called Spangled, and it's a series that critiques various elements of living in this country and its history of colonization and violence. So I'll start with this one. It's called Each Star, a Union, a Violent Fusion of Law. With stellar fields shining, a nation gathers in tremendous ceremony, an unwavering faith in white, bodies, points of light. The heat expanse, zealous in their affinity for picket fences pocked with blood, a patriot dream shooting through the Milky Way. A new constellation, devoted vault, conquering sweep, selective ears, hearing a God's invitation. Be victorious, and the morning star will be yours. A day flame, a missile rising in your heart, racing to slaughter children in the night. Your eyes undimmed by maimed flesh, a continent away or near. As here our very feet proclaim to the soil's oldest ear, and down the wind a whistle fitfully blows, we are half secret, half confessing. While the gold star at the breast and the gun hip saunter, the first form father on patrol at the border, in the sheets, pocket full glistening jingle badge, empty holster, hungry chamber, a hot barrel in the hand. A country of bodies from sea to shining sea, a country of bodies at your feet now. We are a country of bodies at your door, knocking down to say, but these are spacious skies, see, and yes, we'll crown our good, every ghost and not yet who arrives over and over again to burn down the plantation, polish off its offices, pass the word, we'll crown our good with kisses, watch the trigger limb system crumble to ash, lick our lips, wipe the stardust from our mouths, and with our dead cry out, oh beautiful. This next piece was published in a really lovely collection in Nat Brut, a folio that was curated by Kay Ulandai Barrett that was specifically poets, sick and disabled queer poets. This is The Dream, the Bed, after Frida Kahlo, 1940. We know these maladies, viruses, twisted bone and flesh, tornado corded by the body, so many lovers we lost track, corpuscles pinned like corsage, reddest tender bloom warding off misery in misery's ward, minute body in the endless count of the minute pounding out a bilious blues. How a red blood cell is also a historical tiny particle founding matter or light, how we fight, how we matter, how we bear. Ecological catastrophe of relations, immunity and flood, broken shards. The cell is a room with a nucleus, a cave for fugitive planning. We steal an hour by thriving. That is what we call organizing. And they will call the thriving work shy, shiftless idols, we unmoving wrapped in night sweat pillows, fuckery of 9 to 5 and dime shifts. Let shiftless mean we beat the clock, settler, colonial, time. It's genocides pumping through our veins. Who wouldn't run and bury, scheme and steal an hour? The heart, a peeled citrus weeping ichor for the days when I must be my own mother, and bed is a grave one day we will refuse to leave, and bed is a womb we rise from daily, a grave we refuse. We know that affliction is diasporic too. The weight of wars inflicted, the nervous system latticed by the wound, death she knows no borders. So when she knocks, we will put the needle to the vinyl, offer tequila while downing its tendrils, say dance with me. When we were Swain fighting fascism, did loving anguish as much as the chronicling of every curative violence from which we wretched were raked ungovernable? Even death is perplexed. Did you know my strange face? Did you dream my strange face up like Frida in the face of her strange? Did you know that I was here all along, bizarre and flawed, searching for you from the tiny island of canopy hay, flower bed, river bed, freshly tilled with my fevers, this recline and fertile ground. The next two pieces are newer in the last month. This one, I've been searching for a while for ways to write about a dear friend of mine that died a few years ago. And there are various ways that he has haunted me. So this poem is about one of those ways. And it's also part of a newer collection that I'm working on that is taking phrases from the Bible and essentially queering them. This poem is titled, "And I will be every moving thing that lives, which shall be meat for you." Sometimes a coyote is just a coyote, he says, whiling around in the dark as they are wont to do. The rabbit knows what matters, really, is that the coyote is just a coyote, dog hungry and keen on the night's fleshly offerings. The rabbit knows what matters is run. Still, I call out to my love under the sky, so full while his death feels like more than just a death, a processional profusion of animal. How quiet the night between the hills, until I shout my love's name, ask for a sign. How suddenly the whole night and its hills and moon and grasses cover me with howls. How my love takes the coyote tongue, its wind and lung, to answer me, to say, I'm here always, whiling in the dark. I know what matters. Sometimes flesh is just flesh and nothing is ever the same anyway. And I expect my love will be dog hungry and keen on ravishing the feast of an effort, a choral moonlit mess, and I in the skin of the rabbit know this, and to my love I run. This final piece I wrote after a dear poet friend named Sabrina Gauss posted a poem on their birthday, which fell a few days before my birthday last week. This is called, and it was the first poem that I wrote addressing the experience of this current global health crisis. It's called, Let Me Count the Signs of Life Amidst the Planets Dying. It is my birthday, and the bodies are nowhere near done piling up. Though even in the sweeter years, the ones that read my mouth with pomegranate, this is true. We hurl through the heavens, a planet of purple evenings, blink eye fairy tales, dreams at dawn, a planet of stone cold violence and dread, the occasional feisty miracle. The bodies are never done piling up. Though spring finds its way, even if the budding comes from the soil bed of the breathless, open your ears. In the grasses sprouting, a universe sings. The birds, they bicker, and thank God they have something to bicker about. This too, a sign of life. It is my birthday, and the bodies, we are nowhere near, my beloveds and I, all quarantined. I hunger for the warm house of your cheeks, the kisses before the province of the faraway forbade us, made us islands drifting. I am quarantined and mapless, but the starfish have returned. The maples weep their sugar for the bucket. I am quarantined and braid my hair to write a poem with my body. Stranded we weave. I am quarantined and learning to better read the smile beam of eyes peering over the masked inlet. Beloveds, your bodies are nowhere near, and this is how we see another sunrise. And the bodies are nowhere near done piling up. Today, years ago, Marty gave me the light. Today, the spider knits home again by the window, and I plait my head's silky roost, and so we are, sister weavers. And tomorrow, still, I will quarantine. Me, the grain of sand inside the oyster shell, wanting a sooner than later glimmering. I'll grow older with the trees who stretch their arms to say yes, come near to me in my dreams for now, while we are in the far away. And when someday I am a soil bed of breathless, be the tulip by the window, be the bickering bird, be from out of me a bursting spring. Oh please, be spring. Thank you.
Oh my God, Heidi, thank you for that. What a poem, what an ending. Wow. Thank you as well to everyone who's just now tuning in, those of y'all who have donated money, those of y'all who will continue to do that. Again, all of this is so appreciated, and I'm honestly humbled by the amount of support, fiscal, emotional, intellectual, social, that's been coming in around this series. It really, really means a lot. Thank you so much to our first two readers. Our third reader, Johanna Hedva, is, we're going to do something slightly different. They're currently based in Berlin, so because of the time difference, have pre-recorded a reading, which will be, I'll just be screen sharing in a moment, but I wanted to read their bio and say a few notes about them first. Johanna Hedva is a Korean-American writer, artist, musician, and astrologer who was raised in Los Angeles by a family of witches and now lives in LA and Berlin. They're the author of the novel On Hell, which was named one of Dennis Cooper's favorites in 2018, and their collection of poems, essays, and performances, Minerva the Miscarriage of the Brain, will be published by Sming Sming and Wolfman in September 2020. This was announced like a day ago, like 2 days ago. Like all of these readers are bringing new shit. I'm so excited. Johanna's writing has appeared in Triple Canopy, Frieze, The White Review, and Black Warrior Review, and has been anthologized in GenderFail and the Asian American Literary Review. Their essay, Sick Woman Theory, published in 2016 in Mask magazine, has been translated into 6 languages. Their work has been shown in the Institute of Contemporary Arts in London, Performance Space New York, the LA Architecture and Design Museum, and the Museum of Contemporary Art on the Moon. Their album, The Sun and the Moon, was released in March 2019, and since 2018, they've been touring Black Moon Lilith and Pisces in the 4th house, a doom metal guitar and voice performance influenced by Korean shamanist ritual. And also, just on a more personal note, Johanna's work has been really deeply influential to my own artistic practice, both in its intellectual rigor and its breadth of imagination and unflinching gaze, and truly multidisciplinary reach. I'm so excited to present this reading from them. And if you're just tuning in now, you can follow along on the access document that's linked on the webpage for Johanna's reading. And also, if you have any money, you can consider donating to the Venmo also on that page. All of the money goes 100% to support the artists. But I'm just going to pull up their video right now and sort of go from there. And hopefully the sound should work for this.
Hi, I'm Johanna Hedva. I am in Berlin at the moment during the day, as you can see, so I'm recording my portion and sending this to you through time and space. I will appear as a kind of astral projection. It's April 12th, I think, 2020. The days are kind of like all blurring together, as I'm sure it's true for you all too. This is my little office that I spend most of my time alone in, even when there's not a pandemic. So welcome to this little space I have on the planet. It's kind of nice to think that you maybe are all joining me here in some sort of spectral way in the future. I thought I would read two things. One from my new book and one from my old book. My new book is coming out in September 2020. It's called Minerva the Miscarriage of the Brain. I'm really excited about it. It's a collection of poems and essays and performances that I made over a period of 10 years, 2010 to 2020, which feels really substantial, honestly, to have like a decade worth of work that could be collected at all. It's coming out with two presses. They're co-publishing it, Sming Sming Books and Wolfman Books. And the reason for that is Sming Sming is an art press and Wolfman is a literary press. And the book, well, I don't want to call Minerva like a hybrid. I think she's more like a shapeshifter. She kind of exists in both of these worlds and without, on the outside of them as well as kind of liminally. So anyway, it will be a kind of, like my first book, Angel, it will have certain graphic design and visual elements that are important to the form. So I thought I would read a poem from Minerva. It's the last poem in the collection. I've never read it before. I've never really even showed it to anyone, actually. Is that true? Yeah. Except for the publisher, Vivian. Vivian Sming, shout out. Okay, so here we go. It's called How to Write, and it has an epigraph from Georges Bataille, but it's a Bataille quote that I came across in Eugene Thacker's book, Starry Speculative Corpse. What a fabulous title. If you haven't read this short trilogy of philosophy books by Eugene Thacker, the first one is In the Dust of This Planet. Second one is Starry Speculative Corpse, and the third one is something like Tentacles Longer Than the Night. I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite books or set of books. But I came across this quote of Bataille's in this book. So here's the Bataille quote. I enter into a dead end. There, all possibilities are exhausted. The possible slips away and the impossible prevails. To face the impossible, exorbitant, indubitable, when nothing is possible any longer, is in my eyes to have an experience of the divine. Indubitable. Indubitable impossibility. Isn't that great? Okay, so that's the Bataille quote that begins, that's the epigraph for this poem, and then here's my poem, How to Write. How to write. Fall asleep. How to fall asleep. Pray to God. How to pray to God. Cover yourself in the oleaginous void until there is only a depthless black that slithers through the universe of yourself, spine to kipper belt, and then sing. Sing with the infinite voice from this place, which is a cave and a glacier and a desert and an ocean, for God is nothing but and. How to sing the infinite void. It's easy. Just surrender to it, and it will rush in to surround you with its good music. It's so kind that way. How to surrender. This is tricky. It's hard to get right. Ask your mother. She knows. How to talk to your mother. Don't call her mother. Speak the via negativa. Sell your hair for a mirror. Fill the cave of yourself with nothing and let this nothing come alive with what it needs and the blissful certainty that it will get it. Yes, it will get it. The face of nothing is a mother's face. Don't call her mom. Research poverty Research poverty so that you can defend it. Decode the moon by losing the cipher you used to decode it. Think of an oyster, not what it makes inside itself, but what it loses in order to make this, namely, every other part of itself, although the bit of dirt that originated the new thing, this becomes itself, and yet this does not have a name. Let moths infest your clothes, and don't throw them out, but know their holes. Study her natal chart, understand her detriments and dignities, exaltations and falls, and especially her moon. Calculate her high leg and alcacodon, so that grief won't crack you in two when she dies suddenly. Know, perceive her death, prepare for it, make it its bed, call it in. Tattoo yourself with the last image she sent you, with the last thing she ever wrote, the word fog. At least this is what we think it said. Don't call her mama. See your death in hers, your birth in her death, the little door in her that you went through, which was never afterwards closed. You can call her by her name, but only so that it will eclipse your own. Let it eclipse your own. Don't ask her why she named you what she did. She will say she named you after her mother and her mother's mother, but this is not a name. This is a clock. This is an asymptote. This is a school. Talk to her all the time with everything you ever say or write or do or dream. Talk to her, thank her, punish her, erase her, keep talking. You'll never run out of things to speak if you know that by speaking you are bringing your mother her freedom, which is to say, her nescience of you. Don't talk of your love for her. She will know you're lying. It's because she taught you how. To love, to lie, which is to say, to apprehend God. How to apprehend God. Become pregnant with nothing. How to give birth to God. Become pregnant with nothing. How to know the name of God, to unknow the name of knowing that nothing, a nothing which is a something. Consider that some other words for pregnant are paris, parturient, and enceinte, which also means to be enclosed behind a fortress wall, and gravid, which also means full of meaning. And let me remind myself that when I say the word pregnant, when I say the word nothing, I am speaking to the ontological conundrum of darkness, that most basic metaphysical dilemma that a nothing is a something. I have found this can also mean a something is also a nothing. How to become pregnant with nothing. Right. And let me note that the idea of the basic metaphysical dilemma that a nothing can be a something is also a Eugene Thacker idea that he talks about in Starry Speculative Corpse. This particular phrase, as far as I know, comes from a lecture he did in 2011 that is a reading of a chapter from that book. Okay, I don't have much more time. I'm going to try to read a short part of Angel. So this is my first book. It came out in 2018. And I never read it out loud for readings because I don't think that my voice is the voice of the main character, whose name is Raphael. So I tend not to read it. But there is a character in this book named Motherfuck, and I think that if of any of them, I would be closer to her voice. So this part is the end of Angel, and it's Motherfuck's dream. Dream last night. I am hired as a nurse. An ad says, man wants nurse. Performance acting experience also required, also personal assistant skills. I lie. I am nervous in the dream that he will find out I'm a journalist. I fake my resume. He is not Raphael exactly, the man in the dream who is my boss. It's his voice, though, and I feel when I'm around him that it's him inside another body. The man is tall, white, pale hair, large moony eyes. All of his skin seems gray, the opposite visually of R. Also, this man's skin is smooth and scarless, not ours, with his many marks and fresh cuts. He doesn't speak like R, but in the dream it is him. I'm convinced, I feel it. He calls me a name that sounds jagged, foreign. Naucrate. Looked it up when I woke up. Naucrate, the wife of Daedalus, Icarus's mother. She was a slave. No story about her anywhere, just that she was used first as a prize, given to Daedalus by the king, and then as a punishment, taken away when D fucked up. The man has a kind smile, same as R. Maybe this is how I know it's him, such a lack of cruelty. His aggression turned toward the world, but gentle with me. I get the job despite my lying, will be paid a salary and have room and board, and then we are in his house. Huge, a mansion, in the hills, elaborate rooms and hallways, like a maze, dark. Outside there is a grove of skyscraper-tall trees. I can't see the tops of them. Acres of land, the whole world, and he has built it himself. A little like the beast in Beauty and the Beast, I notice his gray skin is covered in a fine fur, like down and a little shiny, like the coat on a cat. He gives me a thick black binder, 5 inches thick, papers falling out. The papers have his age, place of birth, all not actual R's, and then what look like doctor's reports, medical reports, diagrams and x-rays of bones and ligaments. Illustrations of the exoskeleton I saw on R's back that night in the parking lot. Stacks of vertebrae made out of metal, kind of bondagey, thick black straps and metal rings. He asks me if he looks familiar. We stare at each other's eyes. His eyes become big and sad and unoccupied, the only moment in the dream where I am scared. I sign a non-disclosure agreement. In the dream, I remember about that therapist from my early 20s who asked what trust meant to me, and I couldn't answer. I start to understand that I will be responsible for so much for this man, his entire well-being, his life, and I realize that he is not human. An alien, but only because I know it's nothing that's ever existed before, not outer space, just no precedent. Then it's my first day and we are in the garden. It's like an amusement park, Disneyland, jungle, or Jurassic Park. But everything has an artificial geometry. All the branches are bent at 90-degree angles, and then, I don't know, viscerally, the dream gets real. Like it happened. I still feel it now. Like it happened to me in my life last night. Like when you see blood, how your crotch squeezes itself together and you hear your own heart. I might have had an orgasm here. He says he will take me to the pool. He holds my hand and we walk along a trail through the trees. He says he is taking me to where there is water. He keeps calling it the place. When we get there, it is a miracle. It's been designed to look like one. An oasis. There's a little waterfall. The night before, I'd had a dream where my father had said he was leaving forever and then walked calmly, slowly, out the door, which hung open, didn't close, like a surprised mouth, and then it filled with blue light. Now at the pool in this dream, I relive that, but the body of my father has no face, and instead it's R, or this man with R inside him. The water of the pool is green, so bright, like it's boiling, on fire. The water is very deep, he tells me, and he takes off his clothes, but they come off in folds, peeled away like skin, without him having to move at all. They shed. It takes a long time because he is wearing many coats and jackets and then many shirts. When he is finally naked, I see them, the wings, his wings. They are clear flaps hanging off his back, weirdly shaped, like parallelograms, loose, a lot of skin, and the skin is translucent. I can see thousands of blood vessels. They are not feathery or grand and spread out like an eagle's or an angel's or a bat's, which I realize now as I write this is what I've had in my mind all this time, how wings should look, what R was imagining and how his were going to look. My feeling in the dream is that I understand that they are disgusting, but I am not afraid of them and I don't feel disgusted. I feel a swell of tenderness. He climbs up a tree with a branch that hangs high over the pool and stands there, looking down as if he's going to jump in. I wait for him to jump. He laughs at me. I suddenly realize that he will not jump because I notice that he is not sitting in the tree, that he hasn't been for a while. He's been hovering there, above the pool and me. I am confused because his wings aren't moving. I don't understand how he is flying. It's like he is standing on top of the air. He laughs for a while and I start to too, but it is confusing. Then he lowers himself toward the surface of the pool and me, and I see that there is a lot of blood in them, the flaps, and they are fanned out a little, as though full of silent air, little hot air balloons. The blood is moving very quickly, and then I can see the skin is pulsing, and they are turning bright red, completely saturated with red. I realize with a shot of panic that he's bleeding everywhere, and the pool is now all blood. He tells me to touch them, but I don't remember if he speaks it out loud or if it's telepathy. They feel soft, like a tenderized steak with thin bones in it, raw, expensive meat. When I pull my hand away, it is covered in blood, no hand, just thick liquid red. He lowers himself into the water, feet first. It looks like he is on strings and being dipped in. I look and see that both of our skins are glowing pink. The water of the pool is coating us, but when I look into it, it is still blazing green somehow. I understand, in the dream, that he took me to the pool so that I won't have to clean up the blood on my first day. My hand reaches through the water. I find his penis and the bloom of skin around it. There's so much extra skin. I have to search in the skin to find it, like a sheet underwater, a big pillow, and he's all covered in that soft down. It occurs to me that no part of him ever has to endure gravity, and so his cock can be like a flower, floating. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Johanna. I realized, thanks to everyone who was watching, I realized I had a tiny little head in the distance and the foreground of Johanna's reading. I hope that wasn't too distracting. For those of you who are just tuning in now as well, thank you again for all of our readers thus far. Travis, Heidi, Johanna. If you're following along, there's an access document on the link on the website, and there's also a Venmo for you to pay performers. The money there goes 100% to the performers. We got a grant from Poets and Writers, but any additional money helps as well. We've come to our last reader of the night, and I am so excited to introduce her. Dodd is a Black trans woman from Los Angeles, California, now based in Portland, Oregon. She's an artist, writer, and curator. Her work has been featured in LitHub, Poetry Foundation, Oprah Magazine, Ms. Magazine, the New York Public Library, and others. She's executive director for Dove Song Labs, a development of Winter Tangerine, editor of A Portrait in Blues from Platypus Press 2017, and the author of Mannish Tongues from Platypus Press that same year, and The Black Condition featuring Narcissus, which came out with Nightboat Books in 2019, and honestly should have been finalisted or shortlisted or won every major literary poetry prize last year. I'm saying that, that's not in her bio, but it's truly an incredible book. She's been a Pushcart nominee, a co-editor of Bettering American Poetry, and is a Lambda Literary Fellow and a Pika Precipice Grant recipient. And also, speaking of new work, her third book, Impossible Woman, is coming out with Night Boat in 2021. This is something that was also announced like a day or two ago. I didn't plan any of this, I swear. Please welcome Jay. I'm so excited to hear her read.
Hey y'all, I'm gonna do 6 poems, so I'm not going to talk much, but thank you all for having me. Thank you for all the readers you've read before. It was a pleasure to share this space with you and hear your work. Congratulations on all that's forthcoming. Honored to be in this time cosmically with you all. So here we go. Unlucky Duplex, Slick Mouth, after Sean DeVignis and Jericho Brown. This poem is to be read from the bottom up, from right to left and left to right, like a staircase. My mouth be too slick for my body. He asks about what my hands do, and I tell him what my hands have done. They're eager to finger and trouble. His fingers become eager with a new kind of trouble. His hands grace a weapon, ready as my gag. My nails unweaponed by grace, readies, gags, fold into themselves, prepared for breaking. I fold into myself, prepare unbroken tongue for better story later. If my tongue could tell better stories later, they'd be honeycomb wax testimony song. Oh, come, honey, come, testify on wax, sing before my mouth deads this slick body. I've been half in love with an easeful death. Again with the romance for something mortal. The only enemy I sleep with gets tucked into crushed lavender. Every other weapon must fuck harder than that. My greatest fear can only blossom in this dimension. I root across continuum into more nourishment networks. In the end, each respective era gets no love without some trail sediment leading back to the first garden that big banged itself out of meteor and lust to become more sustainable. No, more terminal life forms live under our skin, and we choose to recognize evolution as a fetish of time. I'm gonna skip forward a bit to obligation number 5, or translucence, if you're following along in the access document. Obligation number 5, or translucence. I'm the reflection of something that is. I live this fantasy myself. I need you to see it like I do at least once. Don't lie to me. I know flimsy when I write it. Ethereal epidermis, an edict on everything that evaporates, skin of unshowable debt, face of featured fabrication, full-time fixture. Think of how long light takes to travel across space. All we recognize is the very diffusion, the slight slice of spectrum we call our vision. Naked, despite density, we appear as films, screens, scrims, stages, veins, and crosses seen through lux light. Imagine the appearance of a thing, but not the thing itself. This is how we are taught to love. What can be projected from imagination? A truth will travel slower than the speed of light. Space is more expensive than I'd ever be. I am the reflection of something that is. This is after a more famous poet than me, but they have their name, so I'm not gonna repeat it here. Who lived happily before this war? And when they propagated kinder people's tweets, we retweeted, but not enough. We quote tweeted them, but not enough. Tag me in my hashtag bed. Around my bed, America was typical. Guilty house by guilty house by guilty house. I took a joint outside and sang to the moon. In the 3rd month of my hormones, in the land of terror, in the street of terror, in the suburb of terror, in the penthouse of terror, our blood country of terror, we can't forgive. Who lived happily before this war? I'm gonna read an excerpt from Getting Hungry, the last third. Sometimes I worry I avoid people who remind me of me. I too wake up wanting to be mediocre every so often. I grew up eavesdropping on parties near me and ones I was in the middle of. Whenever I get annoyed, no one is talking. No, sorry, Whenever I get annoyed, no one is talking to me. I remember how ardently I refuse almost anyone's unsolicited opinion. Solicitation is becoming a troubling rhetoric. I don't resent all the ways my life's work casts me as a greedy receiver. I get hungry, but so do you. This is my last poem. Now I'm in Death's nightclub. Space is a paradox. Still a citizen of a planet taking itself way too seriously and never seriously enough. I can't believe this life's cover charge. I didn't become a lady to get in free, but to get out alive, sober, and drinking sparkling water almost exclusively. I need some excitement in my mouth to swallow this funeral march of a reality. I can't even hear myself over myself. It's a lip-read mantra of 5 more minutes and maybe a song I like will gravity my body into a theoretical torus. No more last call in this orbit. I'm not waiting for the new Cold War to melt from the poles, drown heaven in a programmable operating system. Nothing can happen here, and yet here I am waiting in line to piss off the crowd with my DJ request. Play something that will shatter the earth. Even in fragments, the whole planet would still be in space, regardless of the surface, the core, the atmosphere, all our matter, mechanic. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, thank you for that reading so much. All of that was incredible. I think we've come to the end of the night. So I just wanted to say to everyone who has joined in, thank you so much. Thank you to all of our readers, Travis, Heidi, Johanna, Jay, all of y'all were so incredible. Thank you to everyone who supported this. If you have any available spare income, spare money, whatever, please consider donating it via the Venmo in the bio at Zeph Lasowski. It all goes 100% to the readers. And thank you as well to the captioner, Lenore, as well, and everyone who has, just everyone involved in this again. I'm humbled, as I said, by it all, and I'm excited by the fucking work that's coming out. Like, goddamn, 3 books in the next year, minimum. What the fuck? On that note, thank you so much to everyone again, and I'm going to stop streaming live, but there'll be an archived version of this within the next day, and there'll be another one of these readings sometime in the future as well. Thank you again.